Hi, I'm Steve, and this is Oxford in America.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Oxford in America. In our last episode, we just completed several days of hard off-road work reaching some of the highest roads in Colorado. Now, it's time to leave the dirt track and pick up some miles on the pavement as we head into New Mexico. Our main goal of this episode is to try to find a herd of wild buffalo in the plains of Oklahoma. But before we leave the dirt track and jump on the highways, we did a quick check on the lug nuts on all four tires, and we are shocked at what we found. While Oxford's lug nuts were tight, one of the entire front wheels was a bit wobbly. In fact, we took a closer look at some video from the days before. We actually saw a little extra movement from the entire front steering assembly. And that brings us to this week's Oxford Repair Moment. It did not take long to determine the cause of play in the front wheel. The nuts holding the front swivel pins had backed out and were little more than finger tight. The interesting thing about these specific parts is that they are Whitworth sized. A lot of folks will tell you that there's not much difference and that they know some secret equivalency between metric or SAE tools and Whitworth. And it looks like one of those folks had worked on Oxford at some time in the past. As you can see from this photo, the nuts on the top of the swivel pin are badly worn and rounded, most likely from improperly sized tools. In this condition, it was impossible to place a wrench and tighten them solidly. For this repair, we sourced a handful of original Whitworth nuts and locking tabs from Penguin 4x4 and changed out both sides. Here you can see the top of the steering swivel pin on one side of Oxford. On later model Series 2 or Series 3 vehicles, each of these nuts would have had a locking tab installed that would have folded up against these nuts and prevented them from backing out. I'm told that some of the Series 1 Rovers had them installed and some of them did not. And clearly, Oxford does not have them installed. So we're going to install them today. The first thing we did is a little cleaning with the wire brush. The next step was to remove the nuts from one side of the swivel pin, leaving the other side tight so the assembly doesn't come apart on us. As you can see, these nuts were installed with a common spring or lock washer, and they appear to have reached the end of their useful life. Our next step is to install the safety tab. This simple piece of metal costs about $1 a piece and acts as a sorter washer as well as a safety lock. We place it down across the bolts and then tighten up the nuts. We don't need a spring or lock washer any longer because the safety tabs will fold up and hold the nuts in position and prevent them from backing out. Now, we bend up the tabs against the nut. We zoomed in to get a better view as we move on to the next tab and bend it up. Once we get them bent up, I like to take a light hammer and tap on the tabs to make sure they sit flatly against the nuts. Now, we do the same thing on the other bolt. And now we do the same thing on the back side. And there you go. Both safety tabs installed and all 4 nuts held firmly into place. And for about $2 a side, we increased the safety on this steering assembly a tremendous amount. And that is this episode's Oxford Repair Moment. With Oxford all tightened up, it was time to enter our next state, New Mexico. We didn't cover a lot of ground in the state as we were just cutting the northeast corner, but it did give us a chance to get back off-road and explore some new territory and see some beautiful new scenery. In keeping with the trend of this trip, it didn't take us long to find another road closure. What made this particularly fun is that this detour pushed us off the paper map and nowhere near a cell tower to get a data signal. We put our trust in Dead Reckoning and general compass headings, and we found ourselves back on track in about an hour. But the detour did give us the opportunity to make a few additional pronghorn sightings, and that just made us more excited about trying to find some buffalo in Oklahoma. Once we made it to Oklahoma, we'd reached the approximate midpoint of the journey, having already covered 2,800 miles. As exciting as that milestone was, the entrance into the state was far less spectacular, with our crossing not even rating a state welcome sign. We didn't travel far before we made our first stop in Oklahoma, the Great Plains Bunkhouse, a popular overnight stay along the Trans-American Trail on the western edge of Oklahoma. Here is where we met up with our new travel buddy, Mickey, the 1957 Series 1 Land Rover with Steve Hoare and Mark Van Linton at the helm.
We were expecting Oxford, but we thought, just to make sure that they stopped, that we'd place gear oil at the end of the driveway. So we strategically placed several gallons of gear oil. And then Oxford with Mike and David turned up.
So what was your first impressions of the truck and meeting the legend?
I was glad we were driving Mickey.
It's a cool old truck,
It's
man.
a cool truck, yes,
Yep.
it's a cool truck.
Yep.
Mickey is currently owned by Steve Hoare and was originally built and exported to Canada for the timber industry. Steve christened his Rover as Mickey due to its comically large side mirrors that resemble the ears from a famous cartoon mouse. And I guess true to any Land Rover adventure, once we met Mickey, we had a mechanical problem
Right.
right out of the gate.
Yep. Steve's Land Rover Mickey had a bolt shear on one of the leaf springs, and the owner of the bunkhouse managed to call around to the farms in the area and found us a bolt that we could make work to get his truck back on the road.
It wasn't exact,
No, it
but it
wasn't
was.
exact.
But the beauty of a Land Rover series truck is good enough is good enough.
Yes.
With Mickey repaired and a good night of rest, it was time to strike out across the plains of Oklahoma in search of our buffalo. Our buffalo viewing destination was the Tallgrass Prairie Preserve. It took us 2 days of straight dirt roads crossing endless fields before we got there. When we did arrive, it was our first rain of the trip, and while the dust turned to mud, the road still led us to our destination, a wild herd of buffalo. One of the other cool things about spotting the buffalo was the chance for us to use Oxford's big game viewing hatch. Muddy shoes on the seats and rainwater on the camera lenses still did not detract from the beauty of these behemoths. technically, they're called bison and are the cousins to the Asian and African watering Cape buffalo. But we don't care what you call them. They're a big part of American history and they're amazing to look at.
Well, that does it for this episode of Oxford in America. Join us next time we enter Arkansas, meet some new friends, and drive through some more rain. We'll see you next time on Oxford in America.